comedians are more depressed.
Eventually was diagnosed with depression.
The 63-year-old actor and comedian died of an apparent suicide.
They have more substance abuse.
I just started writing about those things.
I have heard it said that a complicated childhood can lead to a life in the arts. I tell you this story of my father and me to let you know I am qualified to be a comedian.
The stage in comedy is really demanding because you're going out there and people have this expectation that's set, you have to be funny, you have to make us laugh.
I got big mom issues, believe it or not. I don't understand girls who have daddy complexes because I have the mom complex.
I'm David Longoria, and I'm an amateur stand-up comedian. I found myself attracted to the life of stand-up comedy because of my troubled childhood. When I was a child, life started out simple enough, from what I remember. I was a happy kid, always smiling in pictures. I grew up in a small town just outside Albuquerque with 2 other siblings. My dad was an alcoholic, and it wasn't that bad for the first couple years, but then it took a turn for the worst. My dad often indulged in drugs, alcohol, and was very abusive. My dad spent a lot of time in jail and was often in and out of relationships. My mom left my dad when I was 7 and took my sister with her. We lived with my dad for about 4 more years, and then when I was 11, the alcoholism became so overbearing that we decided to run away to my grandparents. My brother was spoiled, and I couldn't stand it, so we were constantly arguing. My grandparents always blamed me for starting the fights, and eventually gave me to my aunt to separate us. I had lived with them for a year, and was pretty content with life. Then, my aunt and uncle decided they needed a divorce. I had nowhere to go. Luckily, I had started baseball that summer. My baseball coach had seen something in me that nobody else had seen before. I was 13, so I didn't really know where life was going to take me. I'm so happy that they decided to adopt me because it had changed my life forever. All of this led me to lean on comedy for comfort and help me cope with my childhood.
They're always spank me, Mom, and I'm always hey, Mom, can you just cuddle me and tell me tell me life's going to be okay?
I've heard more stories of comedians helping people that are going through something by telling their jokes or telling their stories to be able to help others cope with things. And I think that's the great thing about stand-up, is just that it has a way of bringing people together. It leads me into talking about Brody Stevens. He was the guy who I looked up to as a comic, and I got to talk to a little bit, and he was kind of my influence into comedy. And a couple months back, he committed suicide. And just talking about his life, he was one of the greatest comedians, I think, that just knew how to work an audience. Anything that he would say could just make people laugh. And I think with that, it was so easy to overlook his pain and some of the things that he was going through, because he was just such a uplifting person and always had this attitude up on stage that was wow, he's amazing. But then all these issues that were going on off stage were just overwhelming.